Here we go. It's part 3 of the axial skeleton beyond the skull. And we did a couple of parts already for sort of the overall view of the spinal column. And we've worked on C1, C2. And I need to bring to your attention now some other little details about the cervical region, which has 7 cervical vertebra. And beginning with up here, this is the atlas. Then we have the axis. And again, the forward and backward movement of the head occurs right here on the atlas. And that's the famous yes expression, at least in the U.S. Other countries, it could be the opposite. Then we have rotational movement between number 1 and number 2 here, C1 and C2. And that rotational movement occurs at the dens right there. Okay, and so that's, at least in the U.S., a no response from side to side turn. And it's also a way to scan the horizon. Okay, and then notice bifid spinous processes, a unique finding over here. So I'm actually going to go over now and not complete that particular page. I'm going to come right back to it, though. I'm going to take a look at this comparative study here and go to our study of the cervical vertebra. Okay, so this is a mid-range right here vertebra, and you'll notice that it has a bifid spinous process. It has a body that is somewhat substantial. It has transverse processes. No other vertebra except for cervical 1 through 7, C1 to C7, have these transverse processes because we have to get the vertebral artery to go through them. Okay. Notice also that we have superior articular facets. This is superior. And then down below we have an inferior. It's almost as if you can imagine a tumbler holding 2 hands up and pushing the person above them. And then there's also 2 hands down, right? And they're pushing down on the vertebra below. And then over here, we have a disc. And then underneath the body, we have another disc. And that also separates this particular vertebra from the one above and the one below. So in terms of articulations with the one above, we have 1, 2, 3. Do you see that? We have 2 superior articular facets or processes, okay, above. And then we have the body right here that has a disc, 1, 2, 3. And that's in relationship to the above vertebra. And then in relation to the below vertebra, we again have, it's hard to make it out, but we do have a inferior process here, articular process. See, this is the superior articular, so there's also an inferior articular process. And then, of course, the disc below. So in relation to the vertebra below, we again have 3 articulations. Altogether, this particular vertebra has 6 articulations, and I'd like you to know that. 6 is sort of the general format for articulations of a vertebra. Okay, it'll be on the quiz, but I'll help you out with it when we get the attunement. Notice that there is a large channel going through here called the vertebral foramen, and there will be a spinal cord there. Okay, this is going to house the vertebral artery over here. And there's one more thing that I'd like to bring to your attention that you need to know for the rest of your life, because it's the nature of being human, is that the pedicles, do you see? Well, pedicles, and this is a pedicle right here joining the transverse to the body. This is a lamina here joining the transverse to the spinous. Okay, so pedicle and lamina. They form at different times and in different directions in terms of maturation. So I'm going to come back here a little bit, and I'm going to bring to your attention, okay, here we have, it's hard to make it out here, Well, there's clear pedicles here. Do you see that? Clear pedicles. And in fact, the first pedicles ossify up here. So the first, how shall I say, bony structures that ossify at the level of the pedicle are up here in the cervical region. And then slowly, pedicles ossify and become bone matrix slowly down through everything. And this is the last one down here, which would be L5. L5. Okay, let's see, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is L1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so L5 would be the last one to ossify. Every once in a while, we have an individual who does not have full ossification of their L5. In fact, there is a missing portion, and it's referred to as spondylolisthesis. Can I spell that real quick? Let's see. Okay, so spondylolisthesis. Spondylolisthesis. Okay, so what's the issue with spondylolisthesis? Is that there is actually, in some cases, an entire missing space right there. Okay, depending on the x-ray that's being taken, sometimes it's referred to as a Scotty dog. Okay, and the reason for that is that this is the head of the dog. Here's the back hind foot of the dog, the tail of the dog. That's the neck of the dog, and so they just call it well, it's sort of like your dog has a missing neck region. Okay, and it looks like a little Scotty dog. Anyways, moving right along. That's just something from X-ray. You'll learn that with those of you that get to X-rays. Okay, then the other thing that you need to know is that lamina work the other way. So imagine, first of all, that we have a zipper, and the zipper is coming down, 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 complete. And that's the way it works from early life on down to a little bit later in maturation. Okay, like out there in the teens and stuff. Okay, and then coming back here, let's take a look at the lamina. So the last lamina, starting way, way down at the lumbar region here, we're going to be having the lamina forming from lumbar to thoracic, and then finally to cervical. The last lamina that forms is up here. And here the lamina didn't even form a spinous process. Do you see that? And then along here, the lamina, when it tried to form a spinous process, ended up with something that happens when you try to make a crust for a pie and your dough has become too dry, right? You sort of pinch it together and it just sort of like doesn't want to stick. Okay, so excuse my cooking analogies, but I used to be a professional cook in my early mid-20s. So I just have that sort of sensibility about cooking. So the deal is that we have this bifid spinous process occasionally up here in the cervical. We have what's referred to as a meningeal. That is to say, meninge sort of like pokes through an opening. Sometimes the opening remains what we call occult and nothing bad happens. And then sometimes the opening up here actually causes some problems. But at any rate, I just sort of want to bring to your attention this bifid spinous process, and that's how things work in the cervical region. So I needed to digress while we did that. Okay, and the next thing we're going to look at then is the thoracic region. We have the 12 brothers and sisters here of the thoracic region. We'll catch that next.